Now, it seems to be customary in New Zealand for the Maori people to give you their tribe, their ancestry. So let me give you mine. First of all, I go through my names. I was born Clark. Dad was Jim Clark. Mum was Frances Miles, became Frances Clark. Frances Evelyn Miles. And I was born Marshall Richard Clark. I married my first wife, who was Christian, and I was not at the time. But I knew she missed her dad. So I said, why not take your surname, your dad's surname, instead of mine? So I became Ross. We became Mr. and Mrs. Ross. Her name was Jean Ross. When she left after 18 years, well, I thought I could change my name to Christian, since I was now a Christian. I belonged to that family more than a Ross family that, well, she'd disowned me. So I became Marshall Ross. And I think I dropped one of the L's on my name, which was unusual. Can't really remember why. I think it changed the number of the name in some way that I thought would be auspicious. Obviously it was influenced by numerology at the time. Anyway, after another 18 years, or rather after 18 years, when she left, I changed it from Ross to Christian then. So, okay. And I was married for another 18 years. And when that lady left, well, I fell in love and she fell in love with me. A lady, so did the second wife. She fell in love, and me with her. But the third wife, when I married her, I thought, well, her name, she being Indian, she'd changed it from Mohan to, as a Christian, her Christian name was Swapna. I'm not sure which way around they do it, Swapna Mohan. I think in southern India they put the surname first. Mohan was her father's first name, and they take that as their surname. And so she was Mohan Swapna. Swapna was her personal name. Well, she changed it from being called Swapna to being called Christine when she came to the country. So when I met her, she would have become Christine Christian, which, and I didn't really want to hang on to the name Christian, given the end of the second marriage. So, well, we changed our name to Hope. So she became Christine Mohan Hope, and I, Marshall Richard Hope. So I changed my name, how many times, let's think. Yes, I changed it 3 times and had, therefore, four names. Really only the surname changing. Marshall means messenger. Richard is, well, if anything, means the name king. And Hope means hope. So it's the messenger from the king. The message is hope. I bring hope. That's not why I chose the name. I chose the name Hope because it seemed a Christian type name without being over-wedded to any specific religion, because I don't wish to exclude by being a member of something. And yeah, Mum's name is Frances Evelyn. Frances is after St. Francis, of course. Evelyn, I should check that up, shouldn't I? Well, Evelyn seems to be derived from Ava. Evelyn meaning to want child, And although she didn't want a child originally, after being deprived of me for the best part of 5 years, she was the most loving mum in the world. So I guess she did want a child then, and she loved me to bits. But it seems to be a name derived from Ava, which is associated with Eve. So Eve is the original woman. Yes, that's lovely, isn't it? And her surname was Miles, her dad's name, of course, which was an English name. And I guess Miles just meant as in distance. I could check that one, hang on. Well, Miles seems to mean soldier, right back to classical times. It's the word for soldier. I don't think he was a soldier, but he was batman to the Sandhurst Officers Training Cadet College in, the most well-known one in England. And he would prepare his officer for duty in the morning, had to be there at work at 5 o'clock in the morning to prepare him to be on parade at 6 and look after his horse and so on, back in those days, a long time ago. He was of English stock. I think he was one of 8. One of his brothers was a dwarf, and his mum and dad, I've got a picture of them, very old looking picture. They looked like a peasant couple. Mum and dad were both short little people, but I have a feeling the sons were tall, but clearly Jack wasn't. Jack, though, I understand, was a very good looking chap. He left school when he was 8, went to work in the stables of the Empress Eugenie, who had been basically exiled and given refuge in Farnborough, Hampshire in England by Queen Victoria, probably because she was related to Queen Victoria, knowing European royalty. And the Empress Eugenie was the wife to Napoleon III, who was killed in the Zulu Wars by a spear. She was an unusual character. She smoked a pipe and had this mausoleum built to her husband in the grounds of her, I suppose she would have called it chateau, being French, and although we're in Farnborough, very interesting place, and the monks used to be there and so on. Whereas my mum's mother, that was Millicent Dooley again, I think was an English name, and he had married a French lady, Millicent. Mind you, I thought Millicent was probably an English name. I must check that. Well, it seems to mean strong in work, mild, and rather sweet. Ah, yes, Dooley was not an English name, was it? It was an Irish name. He was Irish, and he was in the British Raj, in India. He was a sergeant, and when he retired, owned a provision shop on the island of Guernsey, I think, or was it Sark? I think it was Guernsey. Or a provision shop, anyway, in the Channel Islands. On my dad's side, well, his dad was Ernest. Well, that's pretty obvious what that means. Bache. Clark. Possibly not Bache. No, Bache came from Dad's mum's side. She was Annie Bache, Anna. I suspect that Bache was in fact derived from Bach, being German, and could well have been Jewish. Could have been, or at least the father of such going back far enough. He was a very successful businessman, builder. Well, I suppose there is a businessman, sorry. But anyway, built loads of houses in Forest Gate, London and so on. Became very wealthy and had 3 daughters and a son. And I looked very much like the son when he was younger. I could see that he looked like me. I wonder if Ernest Clark, my granddad, wasn't actually born Clark. He and the family were living or had been sent to another family in Australia, Wodonga, and whoever it was had died there who was looking after them, and so someone was sent out from England to get them and brought them back to England. He and his brothers and sisters, I don't know how many, I assume something like 3 or 4. And I wonder if, since he became the builder's clerk to Mr. Bache, Gran's dad, if he didn't just take the name Clark as a surname. And I have a memory of a picture of him wearing a fez. Now, a fez is something worn in North Africa, which would it make him Muslim, or would it make him something like a Parsi or something? But he was European, so I don't know why I've got this picture of him wearing a fez in North Africa. He was a very earnest, stately person, retired when he married my gran, because of the wealth, which automatically became his, of course, in Victorian England. And he spent the rest of his life growing chrysanthemums and dahlias and playing bowls, on a bowling green, all around the country. Loved travelling to all the towns, playing bowls. And I received a whole box of all the badges, one for each town each club he visited, and becoming an alderman, which is a permanent councillor on Southend-on-Sea Council in Essex. Yeah, so he had a great life, didn't he? Smoked himself to death, about 60 a day, was known as a chain smoker, would start one cigarette from the butt of the one that was going out. Was very Victorian, very upright, very proper, very earnest. People didn't seem to associate smoking with being an evil in those days, except that it was frowned upon if women smoked, which of course was very strange with the Empress Eugenie in the other family, because, sorry, not in that family, but the Empress smoking and smoking a pipe of that was really, totally out of culture with the English, I would think. But when you're royalty, you can get away with these things, can't you? My dad had 2 mums in a way. He had Annie, but also her sister Ethel, because Ethel's beloved was killed, of course, in the First World War, which was a war that left something like 1 million English women without the possibility of marriage. And so Ethel lived with Annie and with Ernest. He had, in a sense, 2 wives. I don't mean he was making love to both, but you know what I mean, 2 women in the house always. And of course Aunt Pop, as she was called, Pop, she loved my dad and provided like his car. He got a car when he was old enough to drive, brand new, free. His house paid for when he got married, and even the second house when he got married, although perhaps he had the money from the sale of the first. Yes, he might have done mainly, some of it anyway. And yes. So Dad's side was very wealthy, and Mum's side, she was a good looker. She was good looker in the Hollywood 30s style of Rita Hayworth could have easily competed with Rita Hayworth. I mean, she was absolutely drop-dead good-looking. Carnival queen in her local town, village, and married an officer, dad, car, big house, all the rest of it. Murdered each other, of course, and just murderous with each other. I mean, each felt the other should have been terribly grateful for the other, for themselves. There you go. And does any of this count? Not really, it was just the film show I've gone through in life, isn't it? And those before me, associated with the story. That you're born of God. Born of God, made of God. Every detail of your life has been attended to by God, who loves you from before the world began, before time began. That's who we are, children of God. And the rest is noise. Do you know I'm sitting by the river? Just had 4 cyclists whiz past. Footpath. It's a footpath that's shared with pedestrians, I'm sitting on a bench, looking at the Waikato flowing past from right to left. Oh, someone's dog. Chap walking his dog. And it's a sunny winter, midwinter we are. It's probably the last day of July, which is midwinter, of course, in the southern hemisphere, New Zealand. It's lovely and sunny. It's been a clear day. I was sunbathing this morning, and it just happens to be a good day. And I think this is the first walk I've had by the river in the new accommodation that I've got. I've changed houses. I was sharing with Carol near the lake, and now I'm in a house, the only person in a 6-bedroom house near River Road, which of course is the road. The other side here that goes along the river. There's a surprise. And the river gives a rather lovely walk. I mean, there's just miles of it running along by the side of the river, from Hamilton one side to Narrawahia, I think, on the other, all the way, which is miles away. Very long walk. You could cycle it, but to walk it, you'd want a day out at least. Yeah. New Zealand's a lovely country in many ways. It's very sad in that it's built on the suffering of animals. Cows, cattle, sheep. We exploit the animal kingdom, I'm afraid. I don't personally, I'm vegan, but I am exploiting it in that I'm enjoying the luxury of the society that it's funded. But there are nice people to know. Kiwis, as they're called, after the kiwi bird that is almost mythical. You seldom see such a bird, except in special places, behind glass. They do exist, but they come out at night, which of course is, and they're very timid, and they're getting rarer and rarer, given the cats and the rats. So it's becoming mythical, or at least going to be extinct at this rate. But they'll do their best, they'll preserve it to keep them. When I first came in 1996, they struck me as a very, very open, believing, gullible people. They'd believe whatever they heard on the news and so on. They're not like that now. They've joined the rest of the Western world in being very cautious, very suspicious of their news. A lot of people, anyway. Some are still very trusting of it. But most of them have gone down the conspiracy theory, it seems. Or it may just be the circles I know, but certainly the Christians are very suspicious of intent of the secular world, and the intelligentsia is very concerned about the secular world too, and the youth is not too enamoured with it, with the world in general, governments anywhere. Times change, but it's still a lovely country. Probably the best place to bring up kiddies, have a family. Should I stay here or should I go back to England, back to Frinton-on-Sea, and help my son and daughter with their handicapped, probably 16, 17-year-old, she is now, suffered from cerebral palsy at birth, severely, severely handicapped. I wouldn't want to live in England again. I wouldn't want the climate and the stress and the cynicism. I'm sure it's far worse than here. Ordinary person in history in the UK, it's not been good. They've become very cynical. Perhaps most Europeans have, and 20th century didn't do them much good either. By comparison, New Zealand is how England ought to be. And I think that's how the English see it. The Kiwis, well, they know that the whole world should be like New Zealand, but thank you, Heavenly Father.